House, that surge of federal agents to the Bay Area for immigration enforcement is on pause. We're expected to hear details from the San Francisco mayor at any moment now. Plus this. The news comes as protesters gather at times intensified their resistance this morning to the arrival of federal agents at Alameda's Coast Guard Island.
This is KTVU Fox 2 News at Noon.
Good afternoon, I'm Andre Sr. We start this noon with team coverage. The White House telling us, and sources confirm, the federal immigration operation has been put on pause. We have Ali Rasmus outside Coast Guard Base Alameda. Henry Lee has a reaction from Alameda County officials, including Mayor Barbara Lee. And we have a crew in San Francisco. That's the screen you see right there on your right-hand side as Mayor Daniel Lurie. He is set to speak about his phone call with President Trump to call off the deployment of federal agents. Now, President Donald Trump confirming the reversal on Truth Social. This is that statement that he posted. It says, in part, quote, I spoke to Mayor Lurie last night and he asked very nicely that I give him a chance to see if he can turn it around. I told him I think he is making a mistake because we can do it much faster and remove the criminals that the law does not permit him to remove. I told him it's an easier process if we do it faster, stronger, and safer. But let's see how you do. And it was...
No, what happened was people was out there threatening those federal agents' lives. They wasn't playing out there in San Francisco. He definitely want to take that BS to Oakland. I'm just letting you know. He do not want to take that bullshit to Oakland.
Right now, city leaders standing by his side as we wait for the mayor to come and speak about this issue. The city attorney, David Chu, is there with them as well as we wait for this to happen. While we wait for this, I can want to tell you what Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi said shortly after the revelation of this information. This is her statement right here. She praises Mayor Lurie's, quote, exceptional leadership. The Congresswoman saying, quote, in his handling of a potential federal deployment in our city that resulted in the president calling off the operation, Mayor Lurie has underscored that public safety must be driven by local priorities, respectful of our values and our communities as well. Meantime, protesters continue their demonstration in front of the entrance of Coast Guard Island, Alameda. KTVU's Ali Rasmus has been covering that protest since it began before sunrise this morning. Ali, still a pretty big crowd behind you this afternoon.
Yeah, not as big as it was. I'd say the peak was probably around 9 o'clock, but it kind of ebbs and flows, the vibe out here. So things were pretty peaceful, calm, and people were playing some music. Then there was a skirmish involving one of the protesters who pushed someone who they thought was with law enforcement. Turns out that man was actually a security guard for one of the media out here. So that happened a short time ago. And then every once in a while, there's another car that tries to come through this blockade that the protesters have set up, and then you hear some shouting, and then the protesters kind of walk over to whether it's the person in this case, it looks like a tow truck or some other vehicles. Sometimes a couple times ago, it was a man on a motorcycle, and they tried to convince the person to turn around and not go through here. So this has been the scene for much of the morning. The protest started really just after 5 o'clock, long before sunrise, and at one point after 7, there was a bit of a confrontation between some of the protesters who had blocked the crosswalk entrance. They were anticipating law enforcement officers from the federal government, from ICE, from Border Patrol to be entering in and trying to drive into Coast Guard Island. This is where that base of operations was supposed to be for this immigration enforcement that was supposed to happen before the president called it off. So in anticipation of that, there were protesters trying to prevent people from driving through. At one point, there were a couple of vehicles with Customs and Border Patrol. They had uniforms that clearly identified them as such, and the Border Patrol officers got out to try and tell the protesters to move out of the way, and here's what happened next. That was the first of 2 flashbang grenades deployed at the entrance to Coast Guard Island in Alameda. There's also some smoke bombs deployed, and at that point, The Border Patrol agents were able to drive in. There are about 6 or 7 vehicles that did drive into the Coast Guard Island. Now, the protest, again, this morning in response to reports that the Trump administration was going to be sending 100 federal immigration officers here to the Bay Area, and Coast Guard Island was supposed to be their base of operations. Earlier this morning, DHS told KTVU in a statement that it was going to be targeting the worst of the worst criminal aliens as part of this deployment. But local leaders and some of the protesters here say they did not believe that.